The potential turning point for the war in Gaza after Israel claimed it has killed Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, mastermind of the October 7th attack, which triggered the conflict.
Hamas has not confirmed his death, but Iran's UN mission seems to have acknowledged it, saying the spirit of resistance will be strengthened by the killing. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls it the beginning of the end of the war in Gaza, but vowed to press on with the military offensive until all hostages are released. So will Sinwar's death stop the war? For more, we're joined by Bohl, senior Middle East and North Africa analyst at RANE. Ryan, good to have you back on the show. Appreciate it. I mean, it should, Ryan. My immediate thoughts when I saw the headline, this morning was the war is going to end. But, the consensus right now seems to be it won't. I mean, how are the ways it might go sideways, Ryan?
Well, Yahya Sinwar was part of an organization that more or less sees its leadership decimated and killed. It was almost part of its career ladder. The idea that Hamas leadership is assassinated by Israel is part of what they do. It's what they experience, and they have built-in mechanisms, including in their Politburo, their governing body, to replace these leaders quickly. So Sinwar's death in and of itself doesn't cripple the organization. It doesn't change its immediate capabilities. It does create a succession question, and the succession question will give us some answers as to what the organization as a whole would like to do in the future. But for now, it's very unlikely that Sinwar's assassination in and of itself will see an end to hostilities.
Now, another question that's being asked is, what does Sinwar's death mean for the remaining hostages and the ceasefire deal, Ryan? Do you think Hamas is more likely to seek a ceasefire or hostage deal, or will they double down on resistance?
And this is where the succession question becomes so important. It's very hard to say what's going on behind the closed doors of the Politburo at the moment. They were very quick to replace Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated by Israel back in Iran in July, with Sinwar. And they replaced their leadership structure with, instead of having two leaders, they went to one under Sinwar. Now, do we know if they'll go back to that dual leadership structure between a political and military wing? Do we know if they're going to choose from the Politburo's ranks? Are they going to choose people like Khalid Mashal, who has a history of negotiating with Israel? Or are they going to choose a hardliner from the Al-Qassam brigades, the military wing of Hamas, to replace Sinwar and continue the fight? These are questions we don't have the answer to right now, but depending on who they choose, if they choose a negotiator who lives abroad or a fighter who lives in Gaza or in a place like Lebanon or Syria, that will tell us whether or not they intend to resume negotiations for a ceasefire or to continue to fight as Sinwar was.
And we heard from Mr. Netanyahu, calling the killing of Sinwar the beginning of the end of the war in Gaza. What do you think is his calculation at this point?
Well, certainly Netanyahu wants to spike the football, so to speak. He wants to declare a mission accomplished moment where he can capitalize politically in the assassination of yet another top militant leader. And this comes only weeks after the killing of Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah. All of these things have been positive politically for Netanyahu. So he wants to portray a narrative that Israel's got strategic momentum behind it. The problem, again, is that these militant groups accept that they're going to lose their leaders as part of their war strategy, and it doesn't necessarily change the fundamentals on the ground. The problem for Israel of ending the war in Gaza is that they have to find a way to get governing partners who can replace Hamas and also find a way to deal with the remaining Hamas fighters that are going to be able to regenerate themselves from Gaza's population.
Ryan, would you say, though, that the pressure, from his right, Netanyahu's right, that is, from his cabinet has eased, because he has a reason to declare victory, and the pressure. Obviously, critics have always been saying that he acts to extend his own political survival, but has that pressure eased enough for him to really talk about the day after now?
I think he's got a few days or a few weeks here with Sinwar's death, where the internal tensions within his government will probably ease. Now, the opposition under Yair Lapid and others have already attacked Netanyahu on the grounds that Sinwar is dead, you need to cut a deal, get the hostages home now. So the opposition is grasping onto this as a reason that Israel should de-escalate in Gaza and find a way to get the hostages home. But internally, in the coalition that Netanyahu cares about, I think those tensions have lessened, and they will probably stay weakened for, at least the near term, until it becomes clear that, yet again, Israel doesn't exactly have a clean post-war strategy for the Gaza Strip.
Ryan, and the Biden is set to send Blinken to Israel in the aftermath of Sinwar's death, of course. I mean, what do you think will be discussed? Will Washington apply enough pressure to Netanyahu to call it a day, as it did with the humanitarian situation?
Well, I think that the humanitarian situation will be the top of the line. And I don't think the Israelis have gone far enough just yet to satisfy those American demands, although I do expect that they will get to that point before that 30-day deadline is up. Now, the question of the ceasefire, that becomes more and more likely that America will use that leverage after the election that is here in the U.S. in just a couple of weeks. Because the U.S. at this point, it's such a razor-thin election, they don't want to destabilize or upset any particular voters on any side by imposing conditions on the Israelis before that deadline. Beyond the fact that it's not really clear that without a clear leader with Hamas, if they have a negotiating partner, they don't know who they're necessarily going to be talking to and whether or not the organization is right now capable of cutting a deal.
All right, Ryan, just over 2 weeks left before the U.S. election. We thank you at this point for your thoughts and for your insights. Ryan Bohl, Senior Middle East and North Africa Analyst at RANE. Thank you very much.